The year is 1888. A chill hangs in the air, a dampness that seeps into your bones. This is London, a city shrouded in fog, not the soft, romantic kind. This fog is thick and heavy. It clings to the cobblestone streets. It obscures the gaslights, leaving pools of dim light struggling to pierce the gloom. It is a fog that feels alive, like a malevolent entity. This fog would become the backdrop to one of history's most enduring mysteries. This is the London of Jack the Ripper, a name that still sends shivers down spines. A name synonymous with terror, a name that whispers of unsolved crimes. The Ripper's hunting ground was the city's East End, a world away from the grandeur of Buckingham Palace and the Houses of Parliament. This was not the London of royalty and aristocracy. This was a London of poverty, of desperation, of forgotten souls lost in the labyrinthine streets. London in 1888 was a city of stark contrasts. Opulence and poverty existed side by side. Grand avenues lined with elegant shops gave way to slums teeming with life. The city was a magnet drawing people from across the British Isles and beyond. Many came seeking opportunity. They hoped to find a better life. Instead, they found themselves trapped in a cycle of poverty. They lived crowded together in squalid conditions, their dreams turning to dust. At the heart of this darkness lay Whitechapel, a district notorious for its crime and vice. It was a place where life was cheap and death was a constant companion. Here, overcrowded lodging houses provided shelter to the city's poorest, families crammed into single rooms. They shared their meager existence with strangers, all desperate for a roof over their heads. Alcoholism was rife. It offered a temporary escape from the harsh realities of life. Prostitution was another grim reality of life in Whitechapel. Women, often driven to desperation by poverty and lack of opportunity, sold their bodies on the streets. They became known as unfortunates. They were easy prey for predators. They were invisible to society. They were judged and ostracized. Their lives were hard. They were vulnerable. They were forgotten. The police patrolled these streets, but their presence did little to deter crime. The sheer scale of the poverty and the desperation it bred made law enforcement a constant uphill battle. The Ripper's reign of terror would expose the limitations of the Victorian police force. It would highlight the deep social divisions that plagued the city. Whitechapel was a world away from the elegance of London's West End. It was a place where life was brutal and short. It was a place where the fog of despair seemed to cling to everything. It was here, in this district of shadows and secrets, that Jack the Ripper would leave his bloody mark. His crimes would forever stain the cobblestones of Whitechapel. They would expose the dark underbelly of Victorian society. Life for the working class in Victorian London was a constant struggle. Wages were low and work was dangerous. Families lived on the brink of starvation. The East End was plagued by unemployment and poverty. Many residents were recent immigrants fleeing famine and persecution. They arrived with little more than the clothes on their backs. They hoped for a better life, but found themselves trapped in poverty. Women had limited opportunities and often turned to low-paying jobs or prostitution. The upper classes largely ignored their plight, viewing poverty as a moral failing. This attitude created a deep chasm between the rich and the poor. Their stories remind us of the human cost of poverty and inequality. They are a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. London in the late 19th century was a city on the cusp of change. The Industrial Revolution had transformed England. It brought with it unprecedented wealth and technological advancement. But this progress came at a cost. The rapid growth of cities led to overcrowding, pollution, and social unrest. London, the heart of the British Empire, was at the epicenter of this transformation. It was a city of contradictions. Grand Victorian architecture stood in stark contrast to the slums of the East End. The latest scientific discoveries coexisted with ancient superstitions. The tension between progress and tradition was palpable. New ideas were challenging old ways of thinking. Social reforms were slowly chipping away at the established order. The rise of socialism and other radical ideologies threatened the status quo. The city was a melting pot of cultures and beliefs. This made it a breeding ground for both innovation and unrest. This period of rapid change and social upheaval created a sense of unease among many Londoners. The old certainties were crumbling. The future seemed uncertain. This anxiety manifested itself in a variety of ways. There was a fascination with the macabre and the supernatural. There was a fear of crime and social unrest. The Ripper's crimes, with their brutality and mystery, tapped into this underlying anxiety. They exposed the dark side of progress. They revealed the fragility of Victorian society. Section 5. Shadows of Fear. Whispers in the gaslight. As the fog rolled in each night, it wasn't just the dampness that settled over Whitechapel. Fear, palpable and consuming, seeped into every dark corner. The Ripper's gruesome deeds were no longer just whispered rumors. They were a terrifying reality. The newspapers, hungry for any scrap of information, published lurid accounts of the murders. They often exaggerated the details. This fueled the public's imagination. The Whitechapel murders became a national obsession. People were afraid to walk the streets alone at night. The fear was especially acute for women. They knew they were the intended victims of this unseen monster. The police, overwhelmed and under immense pressure, seemed powerless to stop the killings. Every shadow held the potential for danger. Every stranger was a suspect. The Ripper's reign of terror had a profound impact on the psyche of Victorian London. It shattered the illusion of safety and order. It revealed the darkness that lurked beneath the surface of society. People began to question the very fabric of their world. Was this the price of progress? Had the city grown too big, too fast, leaving behind its humanity in the pursuit of modernity? These were questions that haunted the city. They lingered long after the Ripper's knife fell silent. They continue to resonate even today. Section 1. A flicker in the darkness. The Whitechapel tragedy begins. The summer of 1888 in Whitechapel was like any other. Days were filled with the clatter of horse-drawn carriages and street vendors. Yet beneath the surface, a darkness was brewing. Polly Nichols met her end, on a cobblestone street, barely illuminated by a flickering gaslight. Her brutal end etched her name into history. The discovery of Polly's body sent shockwaves through the community. People whispered in hushed tones laced with fear and disbelief. Who could have committed such a heinous act? The police soon realized they were dealing with something far more sinister. This was no crime of passion. This was the work of a predator. News of the murder spread like wildfire through Whitechapel. Fear settled over the community like the thick fog that blanketed the city. Women, especially those who walked the streets alone at night, lived in a state of heightened anxiety. Every shadow seemed to hold a threat. Every stranger was a potential assailant. Polly Nichols, like many women in Whitechapel, was struggling to survive. She was known to frequent the local pubs, seeking solace in the company of others. She was last seen alive on the night of August 31st, 1888. She left the pub, hoping to earn enough money for a bed. She never made it. Section 2. Terror on Hanbury Street. The gruesome discovery of Annie Chapman. On September 8th, terror struck again in Whitechapel. Annie Chapman's lifeless body was discovered in a tenement backyard. The brutality of her murder shocked the city. Annie's life was marred by poverty and alcoholism. Her search for comfort led to unimaginable horror. The public was horrified and captivated by the news. Who was this monster preying on society's most vulnerable? Section 3. Whispers turn to screams. The murder of Elizabeth Stride and Catherine Eddowes. On the night of September 30th, 1888, two women fell victim to the monster stalking Whitechapel. Elizabeth Stride, known as Long Liz, and Catherine Eddowes, known for her kindness, were both brutally murdered within hours of each other. The murders sent shockwaves through the city, turning whispers of fear into screams of terror. Section 4. The letter from hell fear grips Whitechapel. As October descended upon Whitechapel, the fog seemed to grow thicker, mirroring the fear that had gripped the city. Amidst the growing hysteria, a chilling letter arrived at the central news agency, its contents sending shivers down the spines of even the most hardened police officers. The letter, penned in a scrawling hand and signed Jack the Ripper, taunted the authorities and reveled in the gruesome details of the murders. The From Hell letter, as it came to be known, was more than just a sick joke. It was a declaration of war. The writer, claiming to be the elusive killer, reveled in the terror he had inflicted upon the community. He mocked the police's efforts to catch him, boasting of his ability to move unseen through the shadowy streets of Whitechapel. The authenticity of the letter was debated, with some dismissing it as a cruel prank, but the impact was undeniable. The name Jack the Ripper, coined in the letter, became synonymous with the Whitechapel murders, forever etching itself into the annals of criminal history. The letter had a profound impact on the investigation. The police, already under immense pressure, were now dealing with a killer who not only craved blood but also craved notoriety. Every newspaper in the country printed and reprinted the letter, fueling the public's morbid fascination with the case. Section 5. A City on Edge. The savage killing of Mary Jane Kelly. On November 9, 1888, the killer claimed his most brutal victim yet, Mary Jane Kelly. The Whitechapel murders presented an unprecedented challenge for the London Metropolitan Police, better known as Scotland Yard. The investigation, led by Inspector Frederick Aberline, was hampered by a lack of reliable witnesses and forensic techniques. As the investigation deepened, Scotland Yard found itself wading through a morass of false leads and dead ends. Anonymous letters, many claiming to be from the killer himself, poured into the police station, adding to the confusion. The Whitechapel murders captured the imagination of not only Victorian London but also the world. The police compiled a list of suspects, their faces a rogues' gallery of Victorian London's underbelly. Theories take shape. Was it a doctor, a barber, or a prince? Some theories focused on the killer's apparent knowledge of human anatomy, suggesting he was a doctor or butcher. The investigation stalls, the Ripper slips away. As the calendar turned to 1889, the murders ceased with the same abruptness with which they had begun. The legacy of a monster, unanswered questions, and enduring fascination. Despite the passage of over a century, the case of Jack the Ripper continues to fascinate and horrify in equal measure. The Whitechapel murders transformed London, particularly its East End, into a cauldron of fear and suspicion. The once familiar streets and alleyways became places of dread, especially after nightfall. The Whitechapel murders provided fertile ground for the burgeoning newspaper industry. The murders became a media sensation, dominating headlines and fueling speculation. The Whitechapel murders fueled a plethora of conspiracy theories. One of the most enduring theories linked the murders to Freemasonry, suggesting a high-ranking Freemason was the killer. Public outrage and social reform giving voice to the voiceless. The Whitechapel murders, horrifying in their brutality, sparked social reform in Victorian London. The plight of poor women had long been ignored. The deaths of Polly Nichols and others forced society to confront harsh realities. The murders sparked outrage and calls for social reform. Reformers highlighted the need for better housing and economic opportunities. The murders exposed the dangers faced by women in poverty. The victims became symbols of a failed system. Their deaths highlighted women's vulnerability in a male-dominated society. The murders had a profound impact on social reform movements. They brought the plight of the poor to public consciousness. The legacy includes positive changes from public outcry and reform efforts. The enduring mystery, Jack the Ripper, in the public imagination. More than a century after the Whitechapel murders terrorized London, the case of Jack the Ripper continues to fascinate and horrify in equal measure. The unsolved mystery, the lack of a definitive answer to the question of who the killer was, has transformed Jack the Ripper from a historical figure into a mythical boogeyman, a phantom lurking in the shadows of our collective consciousness. The enduring fascination with Jack the Ripper can be attributed to a number of factors. The gruesome nature of the murders, the mystery surrounding the killer's identity, and the social and historical context of the crimes all contribute to the case's enduring appeal. The Whitechapel murders occurred at a time of great social change and upheaval in Victorian England, a time when the old order was being challenged by new ideas and anxieties. The killer's ability to evade capture despite the largest manhunt in British history only adds to his mystique. Jack the Ripper has become a blank canvas onto which people project their own fears, fantasies and theories. He is a symbol of the unknown, the unknowable, a reminder that some mysteries may never be solved. The case continues to inspire books, documentaries, films and television shows, each offering new interpretations of the crimes and the killer's motives. The Whitechapel murders, once confined to the fog-choked streets of London's East End, have become a global phenomenon, a shared cultural touchstone that transcends time and geography. From Whitechapel to Hollywood, the Ripper's grip on popular culture. The enduring fascination with Jack the Ripper extends far beyond the realm of historical true crime, permeating popular culture in a myriad of ways. The Whitechapel murders have provided a rich source of inspiration for writers, filmmakers, artists and musicians, each offering their own unique interpretations of the crimes and the killer's motives. From classic literature to contemporary television shows, Jack the Ripper has become a recurring character in fictional narratives. Authors have used the Ripper case as a backdrop to explore themes of social injustice, gender inequality, and the dark underbelly of Victorian society. Films and television shows often depict the Ripper as a shadowy, enigmatic figure, his face obscured by darkness, his motives shrouded in mystery. The Ripper's presence in popular culture is not limited to fictional representations. The case has also inspired countless documentaries, podcasts, and true crime investigations, each attempting to shed new light on the murders and the killer's identity. The Whitechapel murders have become a staple of walking tours, museum exhibits, and historical reenactments, drawing tourists and enthusiasts eager to retrace the killer's steps and delve into the mysteries of the case. The enduring fascination with Jack the Ripper, while rooted in the horror of the crimes, also speaks to our innate curiosity about the dark side of human nature. The case serves as a chilling reminder that even in the most civilized of societies, darkness can lurk in the shadows and some monsters may never be brought to justice. The unanswered question, who was Jack the Ripper? The question that has haunted historians, criminologists and armchair detectives for over a century remains as elusive as ever. Who was Jack the Ripper? Was he a cunning doctor with a secret bloodlust, a demented artist seeking macabre inspiration? Or perhaps a more mundane figure lost to history, his true identity buried beneath layers of speculation and time? Despite countless theories ranging from the plausible to the outlandish, no definitive answer has ever emerged. The Ripper, a phantom born in the fog of Victorian London, vanished as quickly as he appeared, leaving behind a trail of blood, unanswered questions, and a mystery that continues to fascinate and frustrate in equal measure. While the mystery of Jack the Ripper's identity continues to dominate discussions of the case, it is crucial to remember that behind the sensational headlines and gruesome details, there were real women whose lives were tragically cut short. Polly Nichols, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine Eddowes, Mary Jane Kelly, these were not just names on a police report, but individuals with their own stories, hopes and dreams. These women, often dismissed as unfortunates in life, were more than just victims. They were mothers, daughters, sisters, friends. They struggled to survive in a society that offered them few opportunities and little compassion. They turned to prostitution, not out of choice, but out of necessity. Their lives a testament to the harsh realities of poverty and inequality in Victorian London. It is all too easy to reduce these women to their deaths, to view them solely through the lens of the Ripper's crimes, but to do so is to do them a grave disservice. Their stories, though tragically intertwined with the Ripper's reign of terror, deserve to be told and remembered on their own terms, by remembering their names, by acknowledging their struggles and by honouring their memory. We not only pay tribute to their lives, but also reaffirm our commitment to fighting for a more just and equitable world, a world where the most vulnerable among us are not forgotten or ignored. Whitechapel today is a far cry from the fog-choked, poverty-stricken district that served as the backdrop for the Ripper's reign of terror. The slums have long since been demolished, replaced by modern apartment buildings, trendy cafes and bustling markets. The echoes of horse-drawn carriages and gaslight have given way to the rumble of buses and the glow of neon signs. But while the physical landscape of Whitechapel has been transformed, the shadow of Jack the Ripper still lingers, a ghostly presence woven into the fabric of the neighbourhood's identity. Tourists from around the world still flock to the area, eager to retrace the killer's steps, to visit the sites of the murders, and to immerse themselves in the enduring mystery of the case. For many residents of Whitechapel, the Ripper's legacy is a source of both fascination and frustration. They acknowledge the historical significance of the case, but are also wary of the sensationalism and exploitation that often accompany it. They strive to reclaim their neighbourhood's narrative, to highlight its rich history, cultural diversity and vibrant present-day community. Whitechapel today is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, a neighbourhood that has emerged from the fog of fear and despair, embracing its past while forging a new identity for the future. The enduring fascination with Jack the Ripper, a figure shrouded in mystery and speculation, speaks to our deepest fears and anxieties. He represents the unknown, the unknowable, the embodiment of our collective fear of the dark forces that lurk beneath the surface of civilization. The Ripper's crimes, committed at a time of rapid social change and technological advancement in Victorian England, tapped into a wellspring of societal anxieties about morality, class, and the role of women. He became a symbol of the perceived dangers of modernization, a bogeyman lurking in the shadows of progress, preying on those deemed most vulnerable. The fact that the Ripper was never caught, that he was allowed to vanish into the fog, only amplified these anxieties. He became a symbol of our inability to control the forces of chaos and violence, a reminder that even in the most civilized of societies, darkness can lurk around any corner. The enduring fascination with Jack the Ripper is not merely about morbid curiosity or a fascination with the macabre. It is a reflection of our own deepest fears, a reminder of the fragility of order and the ever-present potential for chaos. Over the past century, Jack the Ripper has undergone a fascinating transformation, evolving from a historical figure into a cultural icon. He has transcended the realm of fact, becoming a mythical figure, a boogeyman, whispered about in hushed tones, his image emblazoned on everything from book covers to movie posters. The Ripper's image has been shaped and reshaped by countless writers, filmmakers, artists and musicians, each offering their own interpretation of the killer and his motives. He has been portrayed as a cunning mastermind, a depraved sadist, a tragic figure, and everything in between. In some depictions, he is a shadowy, almost supernatural presence, a symbol of pure evil. In others, he is given a backstory, a motive, an attempt to humanize the monster and perhaps understand the darkness that drove him to kill. The evolution of Jack the Ripper from fact to fiction is a testament to the enduring power of storytelling. We are drawn to mysteries, to the unknown, and the Ripper case, with its unanswered questions and chilling details, provides fertile ground for our imaginations to run wild. The human mind craves resolution. We are wired to seek answers, to solve puzzles, to impose order on chaos, which is why unsolved mysteries like that of Jack the Ripper hold such an enduring allure. The lack of a definitive answer, the absence of closure, only deepens the fascination, fueling our imaginations and driving us to seek understanding. The Ripper case, with its tantalizing clues, false leads, and endless possibilities, continues to captivate armchair detectives and professional investigators alike. Theories abound, each offering a different interpretation of the evidence, a new suspect, a fresh perspective. But the very nature of the case, the passage of time, the loss of evidence, and the limitations of historical records make it unlikely that a definitive answer will ever be found. And perhaps that is part of the appeal. The unsolved mystery allows us to speculate, to theorize, to become amateur detectives, piecing together the fragments of information and constructing our own narratives. It allows us to confront our fears, to grapple with the darkness that lurks within humanity, and to find solace in the pursuit of knowledge, even if that knowledge remains forever elusive. While the identity of Jack the Ripper may forever remain a mystery, the social and historical context in which he operated offers valuable lessons about poverty, inequality, and the consequences of ignoring the plight of the marginalized. The Whitechapel murders exposed the dark underbelly of Victorian society, revealing the squalor, disease, and desperation that existed just a stone's throw from the wealth and opulence of the West End. They shone a light on the plight of women living in poverty, many of whom were forced into prostitution to survive, their lives deemed expendable by a society that had failed to protect them. The public outcry that followed the murders, fueled by a mix of fear, outrage, and moral indignation, led to calls for social reform. Activists, journalists, and politicians seized upon the case, using it to highlight the need for better housing, improved sanitation, and greater economic opportunities for the poor. The legacy of Jack the Ripper, though rooted in tragedy, also encompasses the positive changes that resulted from the public's demand for justice and equality. The case serves as a stark reminder that we cannot ignore the plight of the marginalized, that social injustice breeds fear, despair, and ultimately violence. As we delve into the shadowy world of Jack the Ripper, captivated by the mystery and intrigued by the historical context, it is crucial to remember that at the heart of this story are the victims. They are the ones who deserve our attention, our empathy, and our remembrance. Polly Nichols, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine Eddowes, Mary Jane Kelly, these women whose lives were tragically cut short, are often relegated to footnotes in the Ripper narrative. Their stories are overshadowed by the killer's notoriety, their individual struggles lost in the macabre fascination with the case. It is our responsibility, as we grapple with the legacy of Jack the Ripper, to ensure that these women are not forgotten. We must remember their names, acknowledge their struggles, and honor their memory by fighting for a more just and equitable world. By confronting the darkness that engulfed Whitechapel in 1888, by acknowledging the social injustices that allowed such horrors to occur, and by honoring the memory of the victims, we can strive to create a world where such tragedies are not repeated. The ghosts of Whitechapel, the echoes of 1888, continue to walk the streets of this historic London neighbourhood. They linger in the shadows of alleyways, whisper through the fog that still occasionally blankets the city, and haunt the imaginations of those who dare to delve into the dark heart of the Ripper case. But Whitechapel today is not defined by its past. It is a vibrant, diverse, and resilient community, a testament to the enduring human spirit and the power of transformation. The slums have given way to modern housing, the dimly lit streets now illuminated by the glow of streetlights and shop windows. Yet the memory of Jack the Ripper, the unsolved mystery, and the social injustices that plagued Victorian London serve as a cautionary tale. They remind us that beneath the veneer of civilization, darkness can lurk, and that the most vulnerable among us are often those who suffer the most. Whitechapel's reckoning with its past is an ongoing process, a balancing act between acknowledging the horrors of the Ripper case and celebrating the neighbourhood's resilience and spirit. It is a reminder that history is not merely a collection of dates and events, but a tapestry woven from the lives, struggles and triumphs of ordinary people.